I feel like Saturday Night Live. The first item on the agenda tonight is for the town sergeant to explain the emergency evacuation plan. Mr. Spearman, could you attend to that, please?
Thank you. In case of an emergency, the exits in the rear, out through the entrance way there, and up in the front here, out the exits, and just follow the exits right outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spearman. Just looking around the room, I think it's safe to declare a quorum present, and I do. Next item is ground rules and asks for tellers from the Board of Canvassers. So, excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry I missed that. You're right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that friendly reminder. So the ground rules for tonight. This is a very simplified meeting because there really is not much to vote on here at all. The ground rules are that we're going to vote on one motion as recommended by the Auditor General. That will be explained in further detail by a couple people in just a moment. There will be no amendments because it's in essence a tax resolution to correct what created the cloud on our town at the last meeting, at least our financial condition. There will be an opportunity to speak, though. I know people always like to have an opportunity to speak. That rule does apply tonight. That's in our charter. Everyone gets to speak on every motion, and until everyone has had an opportunity to speak, we don't vote. Tonight, we're gonna have the limit for speaking to 2 minutes. I think that'll move things along a little quicker. And my plan is that unless there is a call for a paper ballot, I think we can do this by standing vote. But remember, there is a state law as well as a rule in the charter that if 1/5 of the people here, after we do a count to determine what 1/5 is, if 1/5 ask for a paper ballot, we will do it. But I'm going to follow that rule. I'm not going to impose a paper ballot on my own because there aren't that many people here, and I think we can do it by standing vote. But you still have the right to ask for a paper ballot. That's your absolute right. So, the first, I just want to make, is the Board of Canvassers prepared to proceed? Could I just get some? Yes, I just saw a nod from Ms. Stefanik, so we're ready to go. All right. The next item on the agenda is a presentation from the town manager, which is in essence, he's going to read to you the letter that we received from the Auditor General, which I think will enlighten you about why we're going to have one motion and one vote tonight. Mr. Delaney?
Thank you. This format for this evening is recommended and supported by the Auditor General's office. The letter is in your packet. Just to quickly review, it's a letter addressed to the council members. He said, I write regarding the town of Coventry's recent financial town meeting to approve budget and tax levy for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2019. It appears the budgeted fiscal 2019 expenditures for both the town and the school department were approved at the financial town meeting. However, the tax levy, appropriations to pay debt service, and the authorization to expend grant funding were not. Given the unclear directive of the voters, I strongly recommend the council act swiftly to take whatever action is necessary to ensure the town's tax levy and operating budgets for fiscal 2019 are duly authorized. Arguments could be made regarding the need for the voters to specifically authorize general obligation debt service expenditures. Additionally, authorization of a tax levy to support the approved level of fiscal year expenditures could be viewed as implied. Nonetheless, the town council should seek to immediately schedule an additional financial town meeting to ensure voter authorization is obtained. I would recommend that, for both ease and clarity, only one comprehensive question be put before the voters to approve or reject a fiscal 2019 budget proposal reflecting the tax levy and expenditures for the town and school department, including debt service and grant-related expenditures. It is imperative that the current uncertainty regarding the town's fiscal 2019 operating budget be resolved to allow tax bills to be mailed expeditiously. This would avoid any negative impact on the town's cash flow situation and its ability to meet payroll and other obligations. Sincerely, Dennis E. Hoyle, Auditor General.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. If you want to, that letter, by the way, is on the back page of your two-page packet, if you want to read it in detail. But as the Auditor General indicates, we're going to vote really on three things tonight in one motion: the tax levy, payment of bonded indebtedness, and authorization to expend state and federal grants. Those were the three items that were voted, received a negative vote last time we met on June 12th. So to do that, we're going to go through the resolutions very quickly. But first, just to sort of add some context to the situation that we're in and why it is so important that we seriously consider this vote tonight, I'm going to ask that our bond counsel make a very brief presentation to tell you what the ramifications are of the vote tonight. That would be Karen Grandy of the law firm of Locke & Lord. Karen, please.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Karen Grandy from the law firm of Locke & Lord in Providence, Rhode Island, and I have been your bond counsel for about the last 30 years. Does that sound better? I think we got a hum. We're good? Okay. So as I understand it, at the town's financial town meeting, there were three items that were disapproved. They were not approved. One was the expenditure of state and federal grants and aid. The second was an appropriation for your general obligation bonded indebtedness. And the third was your tax levy. And so I was requested to come here tonight and just talk a little bit about, why it's important for the town to affirmatively approve those three items. First, with respect to the expenditure of federal and state grants and aid, unless the town meeting actually approves using these funds and spending them, you cannot spend them. So anything that you get federal or state aid for, whether it's the library or school basic education aid or school construction aid or community development block grants, you may have the cash in hand, but without the vote of the financial town meeting, you can't actually spend it. And so that would that inability to spend those funds would have an adverse impact on all the programs that are supported by those state and federal funds. So it's important, it's really a good idea for the town to approve those expenditures. The second is your appropriation for your general obligation bonded indebtedness. And I'll tell you that under state law, there's actually a provision, it's section 4512(1) of the general laws that says even if a city or town does not make an appropriation to pay their general obligation bonded debt service, it's automatically added to the tax levy. So you may ask, why is it, if it's automatically going to be added to our tax levy pursuant to state law, why is it that we have to vote to approve it? So this provision of state law is in place because the state has a very strong interest in making sure that cities and towns in the state, once their voters have approved indebtedness, that it gets paid, because the state is concerned that if one community doesn't pay its debts, then that'll adversely affect other communities and their ability to access the market. So when you're actually selling bonds to investors, it's important to them in their credit analysis, they not only look at the town's ability to pay its debt service, which we would have because it's the automatic levy, but they look at your willingness to pay your debt service. And so therefore, in order to not have any problems with selling bonds or tax anticipation notes for that matter in the future, it's important that you affirmatively approve your general obligation bonded debt service. I'd note that at the financial town meeting, great pains were taken to approve the authorization for tax anticipation notes, which was good, but I would tell you as well that that doesn't help you, because the people who would buy your tax anticipation notes are the same people who buy your bonds, your general obligation bonds, and so nobody would lend you tax anticipation notes for cash flow purposes in the face of an affirmative vote not to pay your general obligation debt service. Lastly, with respect to the tax levy, you, at the town meeting, affirmatively approved both the school budget and the municipal budget, but you really didn't appropriate any, so you made the appropriation, but you don't have a way to fund the appropriation unless you actually have a tax levy. And so, therefore, without a tax levy, you would be working with the same amount of the levy from last year, which is, I understand, not sufficient to support the municipal and school budget for this fiscal year. In addition, you might say, well, we can go do a supplemental tax later if we need more money, but in order to be able to do a supplemental tax, you need to get special legislation from the General Assembly. That's not something that the town can just automatically do. So it would be my very strong recommendation that the town actually approve a tax levy.
Thank you, Karen. So, following the agenda, next are the resolutions, which I will go through briefly and explain to everybody just so you understand why we're here. As the great Yogi Berra once said, this is like deja vu all over again for some of you. But I want to go through this because there are probably some people who weren't here last time, and I want to make sure everybody understands. So, the resolutions are what Ms. Grande just described. Section 3 is the payment of the bonded indebtedness in the amount of $5,056,423. She explained why it's in our best interest to pass that in the resolution that will, in the motion that's going to be made in just a few minutes. Section 4 that authorizes the expenditure of state and federal grant funding. It doesn't have a number. Why? Because we don't know all the grant funding that we're going to receive during the year. If you read that resolution, section 4, it says during the fiscal year. That's the fiscal year ahead of us. So since we can't anticipate every dollar that we're going to receive in grant funding, there isn't a hard number in there, as there is with the bonded indebtedness. And then finally, if you look at the second page of your packet, it has a very long Resolution J. That is the tax levy. Most municipalities in this state most municipalities in this state don't have the people as the appropriating and taxing authority. Coventry is unique. It is the 7th largest city or town in the state by population, but we still have a financial town meeting because we decide together by majority vote whether to tax ourselves. And so this is really the largest municipality in the state that still has a financial town meeting, and so we have to have a majority vote to carry the motion. That's one of the rules that we have in our charter, and it's also the rule in state law. It has to be a majority of the people present in the room voting in favor of the motion to pass all three of these resolutions in order for it to carry, and then we will be done tonight. That's all we're going to do. So the resolution for tax levy, unlike the prior two resolutions, is very long, but we always read it because it has all the details in it about how we're going to tax ourselves. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask the town clerk to please read Resolution J.
Resolution J. Resolved that the electors of the town of Coventry qualified to vote on any proposition to impose a tax or to expend money in a town meeting legally assembled on this 28th day of June, AD 2018. Hereby levies and orders the assessment and collection of tax on the ratable real estate and tangible personal property of said town in the sum of not less than $73,183,412 and not more than $73,987,759. Said tax is for the ordinary expenses, payments of interest and indebtedness in whole or in part of said town, and for the other purposes authorized by law. The tax assessor shall assess and appropriation said tax on the inhabitants and ratable property of said town as of the 31st day of December, AD 2017, at 12 o'clock midnight, Eastern Standard Time, according to the law, and shall, on completion of said assessment, date and sign same, and shall make up and certify to the Director of Finance, Treasurer for the town of Coventry, who shall forthwith issue and affix to said copy a warrant under his hand, directed to the collector of taxes of said town, commanding her to proceed and collect said taxes on the persons and estates liable thereof. Said tax shall be due and payable on the 15th day of August, AD 2018, and all taxes remaining unpaid on the 1st day of October, AD 2018 shall carry until collected. A penalty of 18% per annum upon said unpaid tax. Said tax may be paid in four installments. The first installment of 25% on or before the 15th day of August, AD 2018, and the remaining installments as follows: 25 per centum on the 15th day of November, AD 2018, 25 per centum on the 15th day of February, AD 2019, and 25 per centum on the 15th day of May, AD 2019. Each installment of taxes must be paid on or before the last day of each installment period, successfully, in order to be free from any charge of interest. If the first installment or any succeeding installments of taxes is not paid by the last day of the respective installment period or periods as they occur, then the whole tax or the remaining unpaid balance of tax, as the case may be, shall be immediately due and payable and shall carry, until collected, a penalty at the rate of 18% per annum unless the town council shall adopt an ordinance or resolution authorizing late payment only the installment that is late pursuant to section 44-5-8B of Rhode Island General Law. Be it further resolved that all taxes remaining unpaid after the first day of January, AD 2018,